Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 29th Sedona International Film Festival. I'm your host, Carol Kahn. We are coming to you live from Yavapai College, one of our sponsors, along with Northern Arizona Healthcare, Goldenstein Gallery, the City of Sedona, and BMO Bank. Thank you to all our hoteliers, restaurateurs, all of our volunteers, and sponsors for participating in this year's film festival. We greatly appreciate your participation. And joining me now, I don't know how this is going to go because we were just having multiple conversations. It is Stephen, Karen, and Peter for White Irish Drinkers. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure.
You bet.
Awesome. And before I even start, so I know we've just met, but I sort of have like this thing. I know it's going back in time, but I just have this beef with you back from Avatar. I'm sure you hear that all the time, but you made me so mad.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
You don't really care.
Let me just ask you before, and then we'll move on.
Yes, yes.
Have you seen the sequel?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, well.
Are you better? Oh,
you're not doing me any good.
I
Then.
I have not seen the sequel. I know. So all right, we're 1 for 1.
There's 2 more to go, right?
At least
3 and
2.
4?
Oh, okay.
Many more to go, we hope.
All right.
You need a driver?
You seem to be that guy that people just love to hate. I don't know, but I
Never,
like you.
never.
No.
I like you. Yeah.
Completely.
You think so? I don't know.
No, it's not. But enough about me. Let's talk about my career.
I don't know. Could switch the tables. I don't know. And Karen, welcome to it. So great. I feel like this is your film festival because I believe that there's 3 films. If I'm
No,
not
just
mistaken.
2.
Just 2. Oh, I thought there was 3.
I don't think so. Unless there's something I don't know about.
I thought there was 3. I was going to say this is Karen's film festival. I don't know. Well, it's so nice to have you here, and also for you, Peter. This is your first time being here.
Yeah, first time in Sedona, yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing. We drove in and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I've been hearing about this festival for years. John, our director, has been saying, get your ass out there. And I thought, okay. And I just was blown away. Just beautiful.
Nice. And Stephen, have you been here before?
I have, but when I was in Sedona, it was 1985. It was a sleepy little town. I remember how beautiful it was, and I remember seeing the Frank Lloyd Wright Chapel. That was kind of a runway to God, you know. And that's all I remember.
Yeah.
So it's great to be back. My first time at the festival.
Awesome. And I'm really surprised. It's freezing cold outside. And Stephen has already been, I think he did the polar bear dip into the pool. Yeah. Or something like
I
that.
had a dip. I mean, you know, but it was I got in the hot tub. It was nice.
Afterwards.
It tightens the skin, you know.
And amongst many other things.
You know, I have to point, last night Karen screened her film, which was very beautiful. The film she made, a stage of Twilight, right?
Yeah.
And at the close of it, she'll never tell you, but the festival honored her with a beautiful award for a life achievement in working in the movies. So it was really so nice to see. It was beautifully phrased, and we felt very proud of her.
Aww.
Well, yeah, and I think you guys like showed up for her support too, which I sort of heard that you showed up for that. Or were you asked to show up? Or
They've been
I was out
asking us
eating.
for 3 years. They've been asking us for 3 years. Oh, you mean to the film?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but they showed up to the festival. They've been
Yes.
asking us all for 3 years to
And
come,
it's-
but then it got
It's been
canceled, of
difficult,
course.
but
Yeah.
you know, I think as you get a little bit older, you realize that showing up for your friends is probably very high on the to-do list.
Yes, I
in
agree.
life.
Yeah.
And Karen knows a lot of producers. So
Exactly. It's a business decision.
We're
on my
looking
part.
for work.
So really,
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't
this
think so.
friendship
Total
thing.
self-interest.
Jeez, and I was going to tell you what I was doing next week, and maybe you can come back for it, but that's not going to happen, is it? Well, I know it's been quite a while, but talking about the film, tell us a little bit about the film itself. And I know John was part of that. John's been pretty much instrumental in coming here almost every single year. So I kind of missed
Fantastic.
seeing him. I
When
haven't seen him
when
yet.
did we make it? 10 years ago?
I think it was 2010 or 11, maybe.
Yeah, I
think
can't
so.
remember exact date.
I just remember for myself very briefly. First of all, I found the title very arresting, and you know, I don't know, maybe I'm shallow, but I actually titles mean a lot to me.
Absolutely.
So I got into it, and I thought it was a tricky and provocative piece. It was a nasty piece of work, I thought, you know, in a good way. And the role was it was kind of a dark role, and I thought. But then I had a conversation with John, and I just enjoyed talking to him so much. He was so. You know, he was a great combination of intellect and enthusiasm. It struck me, and clearly the man knew how to make a movie. And so I, you know, what do you? Sure, I'll come aboard, and I did. And then to realize that I'd be working with these young actors who were terrific, Jeff and Nick, who are not here now because they're busy working. But to be working with Karen and with Peter that's cool. That's a big deal too. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
That's awesome.
that's my take on it.
Okay, Karen?
Well, you know, I just remember John telling me when I went in to meet him in the good old days when you actually sat down with directors and talked to them before you were in a film with them. But you know, he told me we're really telling his story. It's his story, and so I was really playing his mom, and Stephen was playing a version of his mom, a version of his dad, and the story was a version of his own youth growing up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And so that's always sort of fascinating, you know, when you're being, you know, asked to portray somebody who's writing about their own life and their own experiences and stuff, because, you know, you feel like I love working with writer-directors, you know, who, you know, really are deeply committed to the material and really have personal connection to the material. So I think that made me want to do it right away. And then I found that Stephen was going to do it. And I'd wanted to work with Stephen for a very long time, and we came very close to working together once. I don't even know if you know this, but he dropped out of the play like a week or something before we were going to go into rehearsal, and I was so disappointed.
Well, I've always, yes, that was true. We glanced over, we've been circling each other for years, and yeah, I'd love to work.
We would have played married serial killers in that piece.
It seems apropos for him, but I don't know.
Kind of a no-brainer, wouldn't you say?
I know. It seems really apropos for him. Karen, I don't know.
I'd like to hear the score to that one.
I did it, and I had a blast. It was really, really fun. It was a play. It was not a film, but yeah.
It was a very messy stage, though.
Oh my gosh! And Peter, what about for you?
I got a call from the agent saying there was this movie called White Irish Drinkers, and I'm like, Steven, my ears just pricked up, and I went, good start. And I spoke with John, had a great conversation with him. What Karen was saying, getting to work with a writer-director is it's the best, because they're freer with letting you present their material. They're freer when you say, can we do this another way? Or it's just a really intimate experience. And my only regret was I didn't get to work with Karen and Stephen.
Yeah, we were in separate worlds.
We were separate, but John has a bit of O. Henry in him, and his scripts have wonderful turns in them, whether they're emotional or plot-wise. And I did one other film for John called Extra Innings, which was short.
I love that.
Thank you. And
again, I saw that. Yeah, he was
wonderful little twist. And my challenge in this movie was to create a belief that something was going to happen in order for the turn in the movie to happen. And I did as well as I could, but it's aided by young Nick, who has to believe what I'm believing. It's really fun to work with a director who's on the edge to challenge the audience the way he does. But I just think his love of human nature is extraordinary. You know, he has great compassion for darkness, to try and understand why people get themselves in that situation. You know, very fascinating.
Yeah.
And a twinkle in his eye. He's got this great twinkle in his eye, which I've always loved.
And for Stephen, You know, it is a really powerful performance, and to make somebody real, especially at the end, oh my God. And I know how it's done, and I'm sitting there going, how did he do that? It's a beautiful performance.
Thank you. But what I think is wonderful about John is that, so, okay, he had some rugged stuff happen when he was a kid, but this film is in no way, it's not vengeance, it's not expiation, if that's the right word for it. It's none of that. It's kind of coming to terms and understanding it. So there's a compassionate eye that goes for all the characters, including the bully of the proceedings, which I think is his dad, probably.
Right, sure.
But you phrase it, a twinkle in his eye. He definitely has that. But also, just sort of some plain old good kind of compassion and striving to kind of understand, where people are coming from.
And also, I think it captures the difficulty of, well, any discipline that people choose, a doctor, I don't care what it is, but certainly in our world, you don't get a lot of people saying, oh yeah, that's an easy profession. Usually you get, you're never going to make it. No, you hear all the time. And I suddenly thought, as you were talking, that breaking through to find the courage to be, as John is, a director and writer, I forget how much courage that took when I was younger. I didn't realize it was hard because I was too young to know it was hard. But as I get older, I look back and go, where did I get the nerve? This is ridiculous. But I think that's partly what John was trying to capture.
Well, you also see in Karen's performance the heart, because as the character, as Nick, his character, is trying to do something, that's part of it. It's his nature, but it's against his upbringing, I guess, But Karen's mother is so, it's a beautiful, when you come down to the basement, remember that?
Yeah.
There's a scene that I'm looking, we haven't seen the film
seen it for a long
since
time,
for many,
yeah.
many years. So, but that scene always stayed with me, and still, it kind of makes the hair stand up on my
She
arms.
just
It's
wants so
sweet.
much for these boys to turn out okay. She wants them to stay away from drugs. She wants them to stay away from the rough crowd. She doesn't want what happens. Well, she turns out she has one son who's an extraordinary artist, which he's kept completely hidden from her and from
'Cause
the family. Yeah.
He thinks he's supposed to be ashamed of it.
Yeah.
But he's not.
Yeah. I think it's amazing just sitting here and listening to you talk, because you're talking about age, like a lot of things that now you're talking about courage, like how does somebody have the courage to do that? And, going back in time, you guys all had a first start as well. So, recalling that moment in time and looking at where you are now, how do you say that you would, that you've progressed over time?
A light
It's
question.
a big question.
I go deep.
I started in 1971. I didn't go to drama school. I just had an epiphany. I woke up January 1st and said, I'm going to be an actor. Now, I was raised by a family who loved the theater. My mother studied to be a concert pianist, but she suffered from performance anxiety, so she quit. She couldn't do it. My dad was in the poultry business, but for them, it's like if you found something you loved, you were lucky. So they were fine. But I didn't know to be afraid because I had this, like I said, this epiphany, and I went at it with such vigor, and I ended up in an improv workshop that became a performance company called War Babies, and that's where I learned. I didn't know I thought I would apprentice myself to all the talent I would meet, and I was right about that. I knew I would miss out on something by not going to drama school, but I knew I'd gain something. There's always a plus and a minus, but that's my memory. I just thought, I never thought anything other than what's next. I guess it's crazy courage or something,
Yeah.
It was completely, being an actor was so far out of the realm of anything I was close to growing up. And in fact, in high school, when the kids were in the acting programs and things, I was quite intimidated by them. They seemed to have such extroverted personalities, and they were so like confident, which, you know, I wasn't at all in high school. So I had a thought of being a writer. I had a thought of being a designer. I had some things that I was interested in that I wanted to sort of put my toe in the water and follow a little bit. And then I just had the incredible good fortune to be taken by a friend, someone I didn't know that well actually, an acquaintance, to see a theater company in 1972 or 3. That was a life-changing experience. I was taken to see Jerzy Grotowski's Polish Theater Laboratory, and I didn't even know anything like this existed in the world. And it was all in Polish, so I didn't understand, but it transcended language, and the performances and the presences of these 6 actors that came out on stage just changed who I was in some strange way that is hard to explain. And I left that theater 2 hours later, and I thought, I don't know what that was I just saw, but whatever it was, I want to know more about it. And within a couple of weeks, I was studying acting with this group of people that had worked with this company, and I thought, I've found where I belong. I stumbled into it all, but it was a wonderful stumble, you know.
I love that. You're
I
next.
was, it's not so much that I wanted to be an actor when I was a young kid, but I wanted to be a cowboy, or I wanted to be a soldier, or I wanted to be a cavalryman, or I wanted to be Robin Hood. And ultimately acting became kind of the way to be any of these things, you know. But also I was expected to recite when I was very little, and was always memorizing things and reciting for my family, and I liked the response I got, you know, from it. So it just dawned on me that I was going to be an actor, and then I also didn't go to a formal drama school. Years later, I became associated with the Actors Studio, where I've been for many, many, many years. But I wasn't formally trained as an actor, but I had a good background in, like Peter, I came from a family that supported, you know, what I wanted to do. They said, do it. Nobody was different.
That was rare.
It was, yeah. And, 'cause, you know, it was, you know, they were cultured people. And my grandfather, who was a foreman on the Brooklyn Navy Yard, an immigrant from Hungary, he also went to the opera. He loved the opera. So it's a typical New York
Very
story,
good, yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I just was I was lucky. I mean, really, I worked hard, you know, to learn how to be an actor, and I watched the actors I loved, and when I started working in the theater, I really was trying to learn from the actors, from the actors who were important to me in the live theater at the time. Stacy Keach would have been very important to me. Sam Waterston would have been very important to me. These guys, because I could relate to them, and they were making it, you know, and I've had the great fortune over the years to work with them and other wonderful actors.
That's always one of the best benefits of what we do, is you get to work with people that you admire,
Yeah.
and you can't believe you're working with them. It's
Yeah.
like, how did that happen? You know?
Yeah. It's just it validates.
Did you
when
learn to
work.
ride horses early?
You know, I always had a very strong vision of myself as on horseback, and I understood theoretically what one needed to do, and really all one needs to do is keep your heels down. Just keep your heels down. And so you can look at me in a lot of horse movies, and I'll guarantee you, I may look like shit from the waist up, but my heels are down.
But did you start like early?
Yeah, not early, but I started.
Teenager?
I think I probably got on a couple of horses when I was a kid, but it wasn't in Queens. There weren't that many horses around that I can recall. You know.
But when I look at what's being made now,
Yeah.
I immediately go, why didn't I learn to ride a horse? I might have had a career. There's so many things with horses. But when you were talking about, you know, I want to be a cowboy, I just could imagine that.
Yeah.
Where in Queens were you?
Jamaica.
Jamaica.
States, about 4 blocks from Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's probably a further distance than
Talk
we
about that.
imagine.
Shall we talk about him for a while?
No.
Nah.
I grew up in the Bronx, so I was there before
Where in the
Jenny.
Bronx?
Yeah.
Where in the Bronx were you?
Not far from the Yankee Stadium.
My grandparents lived there.
Oh.
I used to, the first theatrical thing I saw when my sister was being born, which was May 31st, my father, to get me out of the house and let my mom have a sister, for me to have a sister, took me to Yankee Stadium. I was 3 years old. It was a Sunday. It was a doubleheader. I don't know why I'm remembering this. And I had a tricycle, and he used to bring it down to the garage, and the guy knew that I was coming, and he would let me park my tricycle.
Parking by Yankee Stadium is very hard.
So I was like you, because of New York, the rodeos and the circuses at Madison Square Garden in the old days. That was theater.
You want to hear? I tell you, boy, the thing I saw at the Garden, the old Garden,
Old Garden.
on 8th Avenue, 50th Street. My mother and my grandmother took me to see the Royal British Tattoo.
Oh,
there,
my
which was all the
God.
military bands, right? And we're up in the cheap seats, right, watching all these military bands playing. It's the Black Watch, it's the Royal Dublin Fusiliers, it's all these guys marching and everything, beating the drums. And all of a sudden this voice says, "And ladies and gentlemen, if you will direct your attention to the top of the garden, we would like to present Our Man in Havana," which was the movie of the moment, right? And the top of the garden signified the scoreboard, which was a 4-way scoreboard that hung in the middle of the garden. It was one of the wonders of the world, you know? And there you look up and a spotlight come up on a guy in top hat and tails. And he takes a step and he plunges off the top of the garden and plummets to the ground. But by the time he did that, probably most people in the garden hadn't even looked up. Since we were in the cheap seats, I was right on eye level with him, and I saw him, and when he fell, there was this quiet, and then everyone in Madison Square Garden started to laugh because they figured it was
A stunt.
a stunt.
Oh, no.
Everybody except me. 'Cause
You knew?
I knew.
Was it
that
an
the guy,
accident?
Yeah, he tripped.
Oh, my
The guy
God.
tripped.
Did he die?
He died.
Oh
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Yeah, there's a story for you.
Yeah.
So that,
That's a warning. Don't go in the theater.
and I'm like,
Oh my
Ma,
How
they
old
don't
were
do
you?
this at every show, do they? You know, I was probably around 8,
Yeah,
7 or
yeah.
8.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's apropos of nothing. But speaking about the old garden.
Oh, my God.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
So who was like, as far as anybody that you said you were talking about being gaga over people who you work with, who's like your person that
Karen.
you would do that?
You know, when we were making Animal House, before we made Animal House, my last audition, I might have even had the job, but Karen was auditioning.
You had the job.
And there were 2 women auditioning. One was Karen. And John Landis said to me, I said, "Well, they're both talented." He said, "Well, I know they're both talented. What do you think?" I said, "Look at her face. Are you kidding? The world's going to fall in love with her." And I was right.
Well, nobody wanted me for that role because I'd never been on film
Right.
before. I'd never done anything.
Oh, tell how
I
you
had-
found out about the audition.
Oh, I found out I was studying at the Lee Strasberg Institute, and I walked through the lobby on my way out, and I looked up at a bulletin board, and it was a little 3x5 card. It said, "Feature film casting, college age, actors and actresses, send picture and resume." I just jotted it down, and I got a phone call. And they said, "We'd like you to come over here," and they gave me an address. I showed up. It was Universal Studios there on Park Avenue or Madison or wherever it was in the old days. And I went upstairs, and there was this casting director named Dee Dee Well, and she strode over to me and she said, "I know you're not in the union. I know you don't have an agent, but you're my girl." And I was like,
Isn't that wild?
I was stunned, and she said, "Come on in. I'm going to introduce you to John Landis." And so I went in and I met them, and we just talked, and I was laughing and they were laughing. We just had fun. Then they had me come back, and I read, I think, a couple of times with Harold Ramis. I think I read with him. He wanted to play Peter's part, but John wouldn't let him. And then they flew me to Los Angeles for this audition, and they had already cast Peter. But no, they didn't want me because none of the people at Universal wanted me because I'd never done anything on film before. And I'd done pretty obscure things in the theater as well.
And you were
But
only acting like for 2 years by then, right?
I think I'd been at the
3
theater
maybe.
company for like three and a half before I came to New York. But you know, boom! All of a sudden, out of the blue, I was cast in this, which was also a fluke because the only reason I got the role was the other woman who I only recently found out who it was. She couldn't do the scene where Peter and I have our first little kind of, it's not really a fight, it's like a little argument. She couldn't do it without crying. And honestly, it never even crossed my mind that this Katie would cry in this scene. It's like, well, it's the scene where I'm saying, oh, sure, you and your friends go up to my parents' cabin and drink all their liquor. And John kept giving her another chance and saying, no, it's a comedy. She doesn't cry. There's no crying. And then they'd do it again and she'd cry. And so I kind of got it by
for you.
default.
It's wonderful about the casting agent. They're so empowering.
Oh, I
That's such an
know.
empowering.
Oh,
Well,
my
she said,
God.
I said to her
You're
later,
my girl. I
I
love
said
that.
to her later, like, why? Why did you say that to me? And she said, I don't know. I got your resume, your picture in your resume. I saw you'd never been in a film before. You had the most unprofessional 4 photographs of yourself. I had 4 photographs of myself from 4 different plays I'd done in Washington, D.C. in the theater. And she said, I just looked at them and I thought, that's exactly this is Katie. She just said she looked at it and she said, this is exactly who I think Katie is.
I love that.
Who was your first?
Gosh, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great people, as both of you have. One that meant a tremendous amount to me would be Bob Duvall,
Oh, my,
because
yeah.
I played Stonewall Jackson to his Robert E. Lee, and so that was a very, very tight relationship. So I mean, I've worked with a lot of great actors, but that particular relationship between Jackson and Lee is very, very dense, very deep. And to work with an actor, you know, there's so many actors I admire, but many of those actors I admire because I could never be that. You know, it's not who I am. It's not my way of doing it. But Bob Duvall, I always felt I emulate Bob to an extent. You know what I mean? I don't imitate him, but he has been a beacon to me. His work is
Yeah, he's
so-
very generous with other actors.
Yeah, and he's a
Yeah.
wonderful man. You know, underneath that, he's got a rugged facade.
I auditioned for him. He was directing and starring in I don't know if it was maybe 4 television, but it was about catching Eichmann in Argentina. So they were shooting it in Argentina. And I prepared for this. I was going to be one of the 5 or 6 people that catches Eichmann. And I went in, and I was, it was a room where you're waiting to go in for the audition. And the casting director said, Mr. Duvall will be right out to get you. I said, no, I'm here to audition for him. And they said, yeah, he'll be out to get you. Directors never come into where the actors are sitting. And out comes Duvall. He said, well, we'd crossed paths, but I'd never worked with him. And he made me feel so comfortable. Because when you're auditioning, the first 5 minutes is just terrifying. So he used the minutes to get from the room to where I was going to audition to help calm me down. Only an actor could, a good actor knew that. But what a character! Oh my God.
Well,
Yeah.
I love speaking to all of you. I know that you have another film to get to and dinner, and you have a full
So many
schedule.
things.
I know, you have a full schedule.
Dinner?
I can sit here and talk. Well, I can join you for dinner,
You
but
say dinner? There's a meal?
being ushered off to the next thing. But I just want to thank you. I'll probably see you on the red carpet as soon as that film comes out. So I just want to thank you all for being here and coming to the film festival. I know you'll come back again. I can't wait to see you next coming up.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And so don't forget the film White Irish Drinkers will be shown at the Sedona Performing Arts Center tonight at 7 p.m. and we'll be on the red carpet afterwards. So I just want to thank both Stephen and Karen and Peter for being with us. And don't forget to follow us on social media, hashtag SIFF23 and Sedona Film Fest 23. We'll be back with more with the Sedona Film Fest after this.
Well done.
Thank you.